So the Georgia media hasn't heard from Kirby Smart now in a few months, but he goes on the Josh Pate show, and or whatever Josh Pate's podcast is, and I actually think some of what Kirby said was really interesting. I think that he's probably not as bad as a coach in the media as people realize in terms of how he is as an interview. When it comes to a national perspective, he opens up a lot more. If it's someone with a bigger audience, he opens up a lot more. Doesn't necessarily always do that on the week-to-week basis with people like us. But I think it was interesting to hear what he had to say about coaching and how hard it is. Being a college, there's a reason why people jump to the NFL, why people want to get to the NFL, especially nowadays. And the college football world is not the same as it was even just 2 years ago, 3 years ago, really. The implementation of all these changes, NIL, transfer portal, the signing periods, the college football playoff expanding, the committee being the one that decides teams' fates at the end of the year. All these changes it's turned some people away in college basketball and college football. You look at guys like Jay Wright on TV now, former Villanova basketball coach. He was maybe the best coach in college basketball at the time of his departure. You see people leaving college sports. Well, why doesn't Kirby? Why is Kirby better than other people? I think that a little bit of what he said to Josh Pate was really interesting. I actually will go ahead and just read a little bit of it right now. I'll read some of it right now because I got it written out here. December has become a little bit of a nightmare, and that's not a complaint because I love hard work. I grind. I am having a terrible time reading this. I am into the doing it better than the other team, but it's almost unimaginable what we ask some people to do. That's what got me thinking, well, we know that Georgia's staff does a lot. If you're an assistant coach on Georgia, or just in college, but especially on Georgia, it's different than being an assistant coach in the NFL, right? And it's the same concept as being a head coach. The recruiting aspect of it, and now having to pay and deal with that. The head coach, that's not their problem. All that kind of stuff. It's just not their problem. And so these Georgia coaches, they've got assignments. They've got stuff that they've got to do. I know they have due dates for things. I'm not going to get into specifics because I don't know if I'm allowed to. But Kirby works these assistant coaches extremely hard, and it is a demanding job. Where during the season, we're talking about 12-hour days, 12-hour-plus days during the season. Right now is the only time that they really get a break, and you don't really get a break because of the year-long calendar of recruiting and the year-long calendar of roster retention and roster development, along with practicing and actually focusing on the team that's in the building. He goes on and says, for instance, we're asking kids that are getting ready to play for a national championship against TCU and Alabama to sign a piece of paper saying that they're not coming back next year so that we can bring in a mid-year. This kid's been here, and we know he's going out for the NFL draft, and he's a senior, and his eligibility's up, but he needs to be worried about the game. But no, we can't bring in a mid-year without removing someone else. It's called a voluntary withdrawal. They're required to sign it. It's very tough environments like that you're roster managing and you're having to do things that you like. Why does this matter right now? This is not the most important thing, but every team's in a different spot, so it makes it very challenging. Hearing that part of it definitely gives you a little bit of perspective. And what my take has been is that all of this is only going to get more difficult, and so I think it is the coaches like Kirby Smart who say things and live things like, I like the grind, I like being better, I like doing this more. It's guys like that are going to succeed. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post here, talking about Kirby Smart and a little bit of what he had to say the other day between the coaching calendar and recruiting and how tough it is to be a college football head coach in a sport that's changing over and over again. Newsletter. It's linked down below. The Dawg Post newsletter, you need to check it out if you haven't, and a thank you if you have, and a half apology for those that listen to this over and over again who have subscribed to the newsletter. Make sure you're checking it out. I know it's the off season. It's tough. We're doing our best to give you content on here. We're doing our best to give you content on the website. It feels like without a national championship, right? The last 2 off seasons have been different. It's been chaotic. We've been working on books. We've been working on selling this and that, and it's been a lot, and there's a lot more happy talk, and it's easier to get on here and talk about all these things when you're winning national championships. Well, the team didn't do that this past year, and that doesn't mean that the work's the same. And actually, it's harder, and so we're trying to do that, and every single day, you don't have to work the way we are because you get a notification in your inbox, and there you go. And we're saving you those 5, 10, 15 seconds to go look for your Georgia football content. Or if you forgot about it, but you really love ingesting it, then you don't have to worry about it because you're signed up for the Dawg Post newsletter. So that's just a benefit there for you guys in that. Make sure you're checking that out down below. I think that Kirby, look, the moment that Nick Saban retired, everybody, content, 24/7s of the world, the On3s of the world, places like that aggregate lists and rankings on social media. Well, where was Kirby Smart ranked as in the top 10 head coaches in college football after Nick Saban retired? He was ranked number 1 by everybody. I haven't seen a single thing that doesn't, and if there is, send me one. I'd love to debunk that list. I haven't seen a single list that has had Kirby anywhere lower than number 1. He's the guy right now. Right? There are other programs that I think are going to be really good. What the issue is now is the free agency aspect of college football, right? The free agency, there's not actually an official term to describe that. It's more of just the transfer portal and money. It turns into a free agency type of deal like in the NFL and in other professional sports. That's the new challenge, and it's a challenge that Kirby doesn't really want any part of, which is interesting, right? They really don't hunt in the transfer portal as much as other teams. This year was a little bit more fruitful for them, but that might unfortunately just be what it is going to be from now on. And as good as Kirby is and as good as this Georgia staff has been at creating and establishing a culture that people can buy into, I mean, look, they went out and got 3 different receivers in the transfer portal. They went out and got a running back that's probably going to be their best running back this year. Right? They went out and got a rotational defensive tackle that I think is going to play. So, yes, they're going to dip in and do that because you have to. And, people are going to leave more often than they did, right? I mean, you lose a couple starters, right, that you normally wouldn't have lost in an offseason like this. When you think about linebackers like Pop, Juwan Dumas-Johnson, Darius Smith, Marvin Jones Jr., guys that could start, right? Now they're leaving. They're leaving even though they're the starters. And that's just a new thing that Kirby's going to have to deal with. I think having the culture established, having winning established is the number one thing for him, right? And I think something that gives him an advantage over other teams and coaches is he established Georgia for what it is right now right before we jumped into all these changes in college football. And I think that was huge because now Georgia's a big brand anyway, but the brand of Georgia for what it currently is was established before the NIL and the transfer portal really took off. Those national championships were won right before we really got into this thing in a deep way, and I think that that's really huge because look at a Dan Lanning at Oregon, who I think, and this is part of the Kirby coaching tree, I think that Dan has a really good chance to build something special at Oregon. I think that Steve Sarkisian has a chance to build something special at Texas. Well, I think Mike Norvell's maybe the right guy for Florida State. Ryan Day, I mean, maybe hasn't quite gotten the job done quite yet, but Ohio State's a really good program. They aren't as established, and they're having to go to the transfer portal more. And in ways, it's going to hurt your team, and in ways, it's going to slow down that development. But they have to because now it's the new world, and this is how they're going to catch up with the Kirby Smarts. And that's who you got to catch up to right now because Georgia, it looks like, is the number one program, despite what happened last year, despite losing to Alabama in the SEC Championship. That's over, right? I don't think Alabama will be the same. It's going to be really good. It's not going to be the same. I'd be pretty shocked. Everyone's chasing the G right now, and they're doing it in different ways. Part of that is because Kirby established all this right beforehand. But I think the demand of this job is just getting worse. And look, I don't expect Kirby to do this for a super long time. Enjoy this while you can if you're a Georgia fan. Thanks for watching. Links are down below.